Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Luke Hunt and this is another podcast for The Diplomat, and with me today is Roland Neveu, who is one of the great photographers who has worked around Southeast Asia since the 1970s. Not only Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Europe. He was in Cambodia when the Khmer Rouge marched in. Roland, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I mean, really, it's always fun to talk about old stuff. Huh?
It is indeed, and the way things are done these days has completely changed, and it certainly, I think it lacks some of the kind of excitement or the way things were. It's not the way it was. Let's go back to the start.
Somehow, I want to say, looking back, it's kind of interesting, to see that 50 years ago, when I've been around, this is the most magical part, where that you came around early. It looked early now, but back then, you just live your life as a young chap trying to see something new. And
enjoy and fame, fortune and fun and everything that goes along with it. Yeah. You started in the early 70s and very much product of the 1968 push, the leftist movement in France, and on the back of that you came out to
I'm right. I was born in 50, so it's really right in the middle of it when I'm 18. So I'm really into that kind of bubbling. New deal. In France, in 1968, I was in my baccalaureate year and everything, which I did miss because of all the demonstration and all the strikes. And eventually, 1969, made it through and went to university. And university was really boring then. I was in Brittany, I live in Brittany, in Rennes, was very, very active. Student, town, one of the big provincial, and very, very active. Demonstration every other week, with fighting in the street with the cops and everything.
The prime you for the fighting later on.
and in fact, this is why I decided to get a camera. I said, what can I do? Fine to work with the guys and, shouting slogan and everything, anti-Vietnam War, anti-everything. I said, better record it. So this is how I got into the trade of taking picture on riots, city streets, and develop a new interest.
What was your first camera?
That was a Praktica. That was the DSLR, but that was a Praktica with a 50 mil, with a 42, screw on 50 mil. That's it. Start with that, 35 mm, and I shooting black and white, developed the film myself and in my dorm room, and that's it, And
then you packed your bags and flew out to Thailand first, and then
Cambodia. It took more time, in fact, So you really have to hone your skill. You have to learn. So I did, shoot stuff around in France, strikes and factories. Strikes and all that kind of stuff. And early '73, I wanted to get really a taste of international in a way. That's getting out. So I went to Belfast. Right. And I stayed during the break, I was at university. So I stayed about 10 days in Northern Ireland. And there was some bombs, there was, army all over and all the checkpoints and all the stuff and all. I found, that's probably my stuff, I should really go that way. So that was a call, that was my early call.
Yep, I was in Belfast in 1982. And it did shock me, and at the same time it was kind of enlightening. Attractive is the wrong word, but it was bloody harsh.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's really like develop your sense of, something different.
Yep.
It's a war zone basically. It's strife. So you have to. I think at first I had to find out if I could cope with that, if I could really get on the street with a camera, go after. When there is a bomb somewhere, people running away, you are just running into it.
That's right, you're running the other direction.
You have to, it's not, you're not born with that kind of skill, so you have to try to find out, if you can do it. So on the back of that, I mean, during the big summer break, you know, I mean, that's July to August, basically September for university. I said, let's see further Indochina, and that's it. First trip to Cambodia in '73, and that was a real thing.
Indeed, it was. And you were there when the.
So '73 was still the war. I mean, it was still. I mean, I did witness the end of the B-52 bombings around Phnom Penh, and all those big. There was other bombing with a Phantom. I mean, I remember. I mean, strafing, diving. In fact, near not far from Pochentong.
Right.
You know, that was. You know, you have two Phantom and running around, and you know that there is an operation going on, and diving onto the Khmer Rouge position. So that's kind of an amazing sight, you know. So that was really the opening, I mean, to my career. I mean, didn't make much sale. Still remember that AP, I sold 2 pictures to AP at the time. I mean, at the local bureau, you know,
Sure.
20 bucks a piece.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, that's little gravy.
Yeah.
And but then I had to go back to France to do my army. This is the whole thing. So I was like a specialist when I arrived into the unit in the south of France, which was the paratroopers. I had been to war already, you know, maybe one of the few into the camp. So anyway, I mean, I managed through that thing without too much trouble. And even went on to operational, you know, those units, they do like a lot of operational trip, like, I mean, jumping in parachute on the mountain, you know, from 250 meters, spending the night in the jungle, or all that kind of stuff. And I was assigned to the newspaper, to the newsletter of the camp. So I was taking pictures, you know, jumping in parachute and taking pictures. That was fun.
And then you made it back out to Cambodia as the Khmer Rouge were marching in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that was, you know, wrapped the university. I mean, I didn't get a degree. I was too busy thinking about other stuff. Then early '75, I said, well, I have to go back there, because to me that was a thing. I mean, I really saw that this is a place where things are going to happen. So of course, I mean, I went out to do some odd jobs and, you know, get some money. And eventually, by first days of March, you know, flew into Phnom Penh. And eventually, I mean, that was good enough, because I was back 1.5 months before the fall. So I had time to soak into the place and see the last fighting around Phnom Penh. And then the Khmer Rouge came in.
I've interviewed a few people about the last days of Phnom Penh before the Khmer Rouge, and everybody had their own take. How did you find the cadre once they had arrived?
On the day, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know much. I mean, we didn't know nothing, in fact. I mean, just to be right, you know, that we didn't know what to expect. I was not caught off guard, I mean, by staying there. I mean, I decided to wait until the end and see what would be next, you know. I was not an anti-war. I was not, you know, an anti-whatever, but I was leaning into the idea that, okay, let's see what those guys are going to bring in, you know. Let's see what's going to happen. I mean, just open your eyes and try to understand the situation. So I was not hostile, I mean, in not knowing much. And I said, you take it on the day-to-day, really on those situations. I mean, you cannot build up, you know, right, for the future. You just take things as it comes, and it's much easier. So, I mean, Phnom Penh was very busy on the last several days, and trying to anticipate. You couldn't make a plan on anything. This is it. So you had to wait to see.
How did you get out?
Well, you know, like you know, I mean, we all got parked into the French embassy. I mean, that was the word being put out. And so we stayed there for the duration, the time took them to organize the convoy to the border.
And of course,
so
the French
that was
embassy
3 weeks, basically.
Right, and the episodes in the French embassy was, of course, part of the Killing Field.
Yes, that was a Killing Field movie. I mean,
Right.
that was very much around that story anyway, with the press and the Cambodian having to leave the embassy and the city and everything. So I imagined at the time that we could photograph a little more of the life on the street. I mean, once the Khmer Rouge had been there, it didn't happen, in fact. News-wise, it did stop on the 17th.
Right. And, well, we know what happened afterwards. You've been back to Cambodia many times, but you've also covered wars and conflicts.
I would say for Cambodia, because this is one thing. So we were evacuated. I went back to Europe and then came back to Laos. In fact, Laos was the place we could go. Vietnam had fallen in between, so we couldn't go. So stay around Laos and Thailand. And in fact, I did went to Surin area in August 1975, just a few months after the fall, and I did met with the Thai army, the first people leaving Cambodia. We had gone through the minefield and escaped to Thailand. So I already had learned that place was turning slowly into a killing field. And in fact, over the years, I did some trip to the Thai border, several places to try to see, to get to see. And it did happen only in 79, where I could really cross the border with a group of Khmer Rouge. And then, but in the meanwhile, my career started to take a more international turn, and I went, to Lebanon. Was one of my big story as well. So 76 and then 82 and the thing, Central America. There was plenty of stories to be done all over.
What were the harshest moment you experienced as a photographer?
You mean overall?
Yeah, it's quite a subjective question, and
very
I've asked the question a lot, and it's always interesting what comes back. It's not always what one might assume.
Just to say, that if you do that job, that business, it's not a walk in the park. First of all, it's definitely not a walk in the park. I had many, stressful moments and dangerous moments in so many places. If you cover Mujahideen in Afghanistan, the NPA in the Philippines, and you go to those places, and that's when you walk in the jungle and live there with those guys, or like El Salvador or or Nicaragua, you have a lot of bad days. For sure. This is a certainty. It's very hard. First of all, one thing I would definitely make a point is you have to be really fit. You have to be really able to follow. Those guys. When you go to Afghanistan in the early 80s, you try to stay up with a column of Mujahideen. Those people can run into the mountain, So you really have to be up there.
And people don't really understand. Yes, they don't realise that there are other issues that are grinding you down. The water is often dirty. Yeah. It's very easy to get sick. The food is crap. It's not what your diet is used to. Yeah. You cut yourself and it's infected. Toothaches, they're little things that wouldn't normally pop up when you're living well, all of a sudden become major issues.
Absolutely, and we're not cut for that. We're not really cut for that, except if you are healthy already and really, look at fitness in a real sense of you have to be able to outdo yourself. You spend time with people who are really have a hard life, really harsh life in the mountain or in the jungle or anywhere. And it's really survival of the fittest. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're taking picture on top of it, this got to go second. You have to be able to operate. You have to be able to do your job. You didn't just came into that awful place. I mean, to be part of the group, you know, you have to create. I mean, you have to bring back some stuff, you know.
And it was a different world, which people also forget. When I was working in Afghanistan, and we were shooting with film, and getting decent quality filming was always a struggle. And then you would develop. You'd take your shots under fire. You would often develop them under fire. You'd have this little black box where you put your hands in.
No, back then I didn't. You keep your film in your bag, so you carry your bag with a new film. You shoot, and weeks after weeks you keep the film in your bag, and you have to make sure you bring it back, otherwise there is nothing.
Right, but we were developing in Kabul.
Oh yeah, because,
What I'd always remember though is that we developed the negatives with the local water, and then we'd scan it into a computer, and then you would blow it up, and you'd have to hit the clone button. And the reason why was because the water was so dirty, and you could see all these worms, little squiggle marks on the necks from the dirty water.
That is not. I mean, I think people mostly don't realize this. You know, in those times, I mean, you go in the jungle. I mean, you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your gear. You have to protect your film.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, expensive. I mean, the cost is what it is, but the process is very different to what it is now. I mean, and also the bulk. I mean, you have to carry the film. So if you go in some place with 50 roll or 70 roll of film, I mean, this is a big space. I mean, in your backpack, you know, and this is your life. I mean, and this is the stuff you have to bring back. If you haven't gone through that, you don't know what it is. I mean, people would go out with a digital camera. You just have to think about the battery. We didn't have to think so much about the battery, but you don't think about, you know, taking all your house, all your knowledge is always with you. You know, you don't send it back to your agent or whatever. You know, you have to be patient on that.
You've published several books, photo books, obviously. What is your favourite photograph? I mean, what are the standouts in that? We're recording a podcast and we don't have photographs, obviously, to go with
pictures,
it.
So
but describe a few for us.
Well, I mean, now, I mean, looking back, I still have a favourite story, which is Cambodia. I mean, Cambodia has been developing as my story, I mean, all along my life, because I've been going back and forth over now almost 50 years. So is by far one of my favorite stories. And I mean, there are many images, of course. I mean, it's and every day you will ask me, and I'll probably come out with something different, you know. But the few pictures on the day of the fall, with you know, with the crowd on overhanging like a big truck on Monivong. Yeah, I mean, this one still, I mean, part of my favorite shot. You know, it's 200mm lens. You know, I have maybe 3 frames. This is it. So it's not really, you didn't overdo it, because you just see something and you grab that picture. But I have, I mean, quite a few. In fact, it's really, I mean, difficult to talk about picture without showing them. I have image which I can still, I mean, remember the time, the place, and the condition when I took them. You know, it of course can be in Cambodia, it can be in the mountain in Afghanistan, or in Lebanon. You have to squeeze me a little harder to really pinpoint one or two. I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
You worked with some of the greats, Philip Jones Griffith, Al Rockoff, Tim Page. Did you have any favourites among them? I mean, and how competitive were you as a group back then, before my time?
By really starting at the end of the Vietnam War, I think Don McCullin was one of the person. You know, I was looking up for his picture. I mean, in the magazine in the West before I was on my own. You know, and I was lucky enough to meet him briefly in 1973 when I came the first time in Cambodia. So which is all right. You meet those monsters, those kind of amazing photographers who had been doing so many things already. But over the time, you eventually you mold into that small group of famous photographers. So you walk your way into that society, and those people are not unreachable anymore for you. So you eventually, little by little, you get to talk to them. I mean, Don. I mean, I met him over time and many places, and eventually you develop some kind of friendship with those people. And at first, you start with an awful amount of respect, you know.
Yeah.
And like Tim, I mean, Tim Page, you know, which I've seen over, I mean, since the early 80s when he came back around here trying to walk into the rice paddies, you know, it was a hard time for him. And you see him over and over, and you become friends, you know, and he's telling you all stories, and so you don't see them as an outsider, you know, as a mountain that you say, I want to get there. No, that's it. You just slowly, integrate the gang, you know.
Yeah, you build your rapport with people, and they do look out.
Yep, most of famous photographer, in fact, they look unapproachable from the outside, but when you crack the surrounding and you work with them, in fact, these people are very normal. I mean, that's what you would dream of, but you don't know. And yeah, I mean, really, it's mostly good experience. I mean, meeting and getting along those monsters, you know. I mean, naturally, I would talk about Jim Naturally, which have a big exhibition next week here in Bangkok, and in fact met Jim in Lebanon, and we were rookies both at the time, you know, because it was about the same age. So it's really, he has developed as being one of the most amazing, I mean, career as a photojournalist around all the conflict for the last 45 years. And so you see people developing, I mean, those amazing skill, and maybe you stay behind. I mean, I did different because I went into the movie business in the 18. Yeah, that's so it introduced it for you. Yeah. In fact, I you have to make a lot of sacrifice if you want to be staying a war photographer and being out, I mean, out on that life. And in fact, after about maybe 10 years into that thing, I say, well, I'm not sure I'm cut for that entire life sacrifice, you know, because you cannot have a family, you cannot really have another life, I mean, besides being on the road, being in the mountain, being thing. And I think it's fine when you are 20, when you are 30, but then, you know, the physical thing take a toll on you. I mean, you cannot stay fit forever to escape death, you know, it's not possible.
You start throwing on a few kilos when you're 45.
Yeah, I mean, then you have to you have to understand. I mean, I've been doing stories in places in my 40s. Wow, it's a lot harder than when you are 20, and so you have to be conscious of that. And you're taking more and more risk. I mean, as you get old. Also, I mean, I would say, which is something I saw a little earlier. In the 80s, I mean, at the time when I was working for Time on Newsweek or those big publications, and there was, you know, send you off places all over the planet, like for a week or 2 weeks or months. That kind of system, you know, start to kind of dwindle in the mid 80s, and I saw it coming. In fact, it did hit me when I was in the Philippines for the end of Marcos in 85, 86. At the time, the kind of month-long assignment that I had in Lebanon a few years before, they were like being sliced down. Okay, we'll get you for a week and then we'll see, and all. I did realize that there was no security into that being a frontline photographer. And interesting enough for me, in 1986, after the fall of Marcos, which was an amazing story, I mean, in a way, there was a movie being shot right after that in the Philippines, which was Platoon. And I was hired, I mean, by the studio from my agent in New York to do some shooting and on behind the scene, as we say. And eventually, when I was on that for 10 days, I did realize that maybe there is something else into that photography business, you know. And I shot a lot of the picture behind the scene, and I did some setup with the main actors for myself, because I knew I could bring back the picture to Time magazine, you know, on my way back to New York, where I live at the time. And eventually, move up 6 months in December, when the movie was released. I mean, a very limited release in the US, and I had my picture in a Time office. The Time ran a cover story, you know, cover and 5 pages of my photos inside on a movie about war.
Yes, it does.
But that was a turn. For me, that was a total turn in my life. And mentally, I say, what the hell? I've been covering this conflict. You get 1 page, you get 2 pages, you get half a page, you get more often like a quarter page. You do a movie on war, big splash. You get cover story, image, double page image inside and all. My question was, the values have changed, you know. Where do I stand? I mean, why would I bother, you know, being shot at for like, okay, I mean, money, but then I work on a movie, I get more money, and I get more picture being played.
The lifestyle's not bad.
And eventually I realized that I get more respect from the people. So that was my turn. I really turned my back to the news business, I mean, with that thing. And eventually, I mean, I went on to work with, you know, Oliver Stone and Ridley Scott and, you know, I mean, Brian De Palma and many war movies. Mm-hmm. That was fun.
And they were good people to work with?
Yeah, a lot of actors. I mean, you know, those guys, once they know where you come from, you know, the story is not the same anymore, you know.
Yeah.
So they want to hear stories as well, you know. So you really develop another relationship with people, and you earn the respect.
Right, so were you advising on the sets as well? Like, you know, the shooting a war movie, you've actually seen conflict, you've been out there, you would have something to offer.
In fact, the first movie I did step on was The Killing Field, and that was, I mean, earlier into my, I was still, I mean, on a news, my news days. Mm-hmm. And when I was on a shooting which was done in Thailand, in fact, I did intervene. I mean, to the director, I said, no, that was not like this. You know, there's no. You know, you look at my pictures. You know, there's not so many flags on the street of Phnom Penh on the day of the fall. You know, there is what all those flags came from. You know, all right, they took off like 3/4 of the flag. I mean, from that, from those scenes, you know, on the fall of Phnom Penh, and it looked much better, in fact. So you kind of push your ideas through. I mean, at the same time, and they take it, they accept it. You know, you were there, so you have an eye for it.
And the business these days, it's not quite the same.
It's. I mean, what
there's a lovely
really
French
changed.
saying.
I mean, what really changed is the move from film to digital. Mm. You work with film. You have to learn some trade. You have to learn something. It's like
trade craft.
It's like a baker, you know.
Yep.
Guys had to do the croissant from all over before. Now you just get the frozen stuff from the thing and cook it. That's it.
That's one way of
photography. It's all kind of work. I mean, zone. You have this kind of thing. Now it's a lot easier to really get into it with the communication and with the digital. I mean, if you can manage those skills, you can get on very fast. Before, you still had to get the basic skills, to be able to operate. That's very different. The approach is very different.
And next, you've got exhibitions planned, another book coming out.
Well,
you're still working. You're in your 70s. You're fit.
It's early 70s, still okay. I'm not in the same hurry. To do things, but I do work on another Cambodia book because I didn't put my whole experience in perspective. So I'm trying to get a serious volume on my work. Over 50 years over there. With a different facet. The war and the street life, and the people and stuff like that. So I hopefully get that out for the 50th, which is in the 225.
Right.
So that'll be a good marker in my life in a way. Okay, you do something, and having an exhibition going with a book is always it's something which works today. You can develop your project as a book.
Yep.
And have exhibition. You have takers. You have exhibition in the West in so many places. It is it's very exciting. You can cover your costs or better, and so that's one of the feasible. And I'm working on it. In fact, I don't want to go. I don't want to eventually leave that word without saying a few more things. You want to show. Okay, I was there. I've been doing all those things, and it's to try to feel relevant.
I think it's a big issue.
Important.
You've got a lot to contribute. Yeah, absolutely. And why not? You were there. You understood it. A lot of people who were there are now gone.
Yeah.
And it's the Khmer Rouge. I've spent like the half of the last 30 years in Cambodia. And the Khmer Rouge, they still resonate.
They still.
Amazing.
It still resonates in most people's mind across the world as well, because that experiment went so bad and I was so crazy.
Yep.
And it's always good to have your own reflection, and people who have been following it, they do have their own reflection, and it's people always eager to listen to it. And I would say there is still that idea. You have to be relevant for yourself as well. For my children,
Sure.
They believe my stuff, but they look at the picture. But yeah, okay. So you do a big 400 pages book. All right. So that looks better. And also for your peers, there are a lot of people don't really know your work until they see it in the exhibition. A lot of people all around, they know what you have done and everything, but when it's on the wall, you say, "Oh, really?
Not bad."
Yeah. So you need those things.
Yep.
You need to cheer you up. You get older, it's good to cheer you up. You have to, keep the momentum on your health and your spirit.
Indeed. And Roland Neveu, delightful chat. Best of luck, and I'll look forward to the exhibitions. Thanks very much.
Welcome.